Welcome to this YouTube channel on how to buy businesses no cash down. I'm Carl Allen and I've been buying businesses for almost 25 years, more than 250 deals in 17 countries. This playlist is my 10-step process to buy a business no cash down. Think of it as a deal-making robot. Here's the next video in the sequence. There are 7 in total. So now exclusivity is programmed into our deal-making robot, we move on to due diligence. So again, due diligence is checking that the business is as good as we think it is, just like the survey you would do on the house you want to buy. And there's 4 types of due diligence, and virtually all of this is done for you. The financial and the commercial due diligence is done by your accountant. However, you might want to do some of the commercial due diligence yourself, like checking the market that the business is in. And an extreme example of that, let's say you wanted to buy a business that manufactured chocolate, and you knew that chocolate was about to be made illegal to consume in the country where it operates. In that situation, then obviously it wouldn't be a good idea to buy that business. Financial due diligence focuses on the numbers, so checking that the sales and the profits are what they are reported as, that taxes have been paid, returns have been made on time, and the assets in the business are what they're valued at inside of the business's accounts. Legal due diligence checks that the seller has got legal title to the business and is allowed to sell it to you, just like at a property transaction. And it also looks at things like licenses, if the business needs them, or any pending litigation. So it provides you with assurance that you're buying a business that's not in any trouble. And again, it's all about removing risk from the deal. And as I mentioned earlier, funders will do their own due diligence to justify lending the money to the business. Not to you, remember, but for you to do the deal and to make the acquisition. So now we've programmed our deal-making robot with due diligence, there are just 2 steps left. Step 9 is the legal contract work. And there are 4 parts to the legal process. Again, your lawyer's going to do all this work for you, but I want to explain what's involved. So first, the main document that you and the seller sign to transfer the ownership from the seller to you is called an SPA, a sale and purchase agreement. And it's very, very similar to the contract you sign when you buy a house. Next, the lawyer will deal with any property-related matters if your business comes with property assets, and then also employee contracts. And there's also something called warranties. Now, although the lawyer will have done legal due diligence on the business, your lawyer will still have the seller sign something called a warranty, which means that if there is something bad inside the business in the future and the seller knew about it but didn't disclose it to you, then you can cancel your future payments. So think of warranties a bit like an extra safety net to you over and above the due diligence that your lawyer's going to do. It's an insurance policy and it's free. It's just written into the legal documents. And finally, the lawyer will handle any contracts between the business and the financiers for the monies that the business is borrowing for you to make the deposit payment. And our final programming step, ownership. So you've just taken ownership of the business. So what happens next? Well, let's start this on the day that you're about to close and sign. So you go to your lawyer's office and the contract is in front of you, ready to sign. So 4 things happen on closing day. So firstly, the funds that the business has raised against the business's assets, they transfer to the seller as soon as you've signed the contract. And if there is any surplus funds, remember that brown box in our example earlier, then those funds are deposited in the business's bank account, which, by the way, you now own, you now control, so you can do with that money whatever you want. You then go to your new business, and if you haven't met all the employees already, then the person that sold you the business will introduce you as the proud new owner. And here's how the funds flow at closing. This is probably the most asked question of me in interviews, in podcasts. Anytime I talk to people, they say, well, Carl, how can you raise money against assets of a business you don't own. So this is how it works. So the financier gave you the EOI, the expression of interest, when you made your offer and you offered up the assets of the business for funding and for collateral to do the deal. The financier's done its due diligence, and then what it does is it advances the funds to your lawyer either the day before you close or on closing day itself. And once the funds are with your lawyer in escrow, then it's time to close the deal. So you sign all the legal documents, and then the very minute you're the new owner, your lawyer sends a deposit payment to the seller's lawyer. The surplus funds, the brown box, remember, those funds go into the business bank account which you now control. And then the seller pays his or her deal fees, then has access to the rest of the deposit monies, and you do exactly the same. And remember, you only pay your deal fees if and when the deal closes. And the business operation can work in 4 completely different ways. So number 1, you may want to operate the business yourself, and that's completely fine. If you don't, and especially if you lack the experience in that particular sector, or it's a couple of 100 miles from where you live and you don't want to relocate, then you may want somebody inside the business already to step up and become the general manager and operate it for you. And the seller's going to absolutely love that. If there's a capable number 2 inside of that business that doesn't want to own it but wants to run it for you, then that's absolute proof from the very first day that you're safeguarding those employees. You just promoted one of them to be your general manager, and the seller's going to love you for it. They're going to cheer you on from the sidelines. Now, if there isn't anyone in the business that can operate it for you, then you can either partner with someone that you know that knows that sector really well and will come in and run the operation for you. So this may be someone that you know already and may have even helped you do the deal in the first place. Or you can just recruit someone very quickly and very easily. And since you haven't paid for the shares in your new business, you can afford to gift a small amount of it if you want to incentivize the manager to drive results for you. I do that in all of my businesses because I'm not a business operator. I'm not going to go in there every day and run those businesses. I want people to run them for me, and I want them to feel like they're partners and they're minor co-owners. So I give them very small pieces of equity, sometimes 10%, sometimes as high as 20, 25%, to drive the results in that business for me every day. Now, in some cases, the sellers may actually want to stay on and run the business for you, sometimes permanently or sometimes for 3 to 6 months until you figure out how you want to do it. They may just want to keep their job and do what they love, the technical work of the business, but they want to relinquish the ownership of the business to somebody else. And that's what happened to Daryas. He watched his training just like you, and he wanted to buy an engineering business. He lived in Virginia, and the business he found was in South Carolina. So that's several hundred miles. And as you can see from this testimonial, the seller actually stayed on and ran the business for him. And he used some of the cash surplus in the deal, remember the brown box, to expand the sales and marketing team so he could massively grow the business going forward. So he was happy to work on the business part-time and remotely, leaving the seller to work in the business and do the daily technical and tactical work that the business was doing. So that's it for this particular video. The next video in this playlist will follow, and please check out all the other playlists and videos for everything you need to know to learn how to buy a business no cash down. In fact, I've crammed everything that you need to know into a special 90-minute webinar titled 3 Insider Secrets to Buy a Profitable Business Inside of 99 Days Without Cash or Knowing How to Run a Business. And here are the 3 big secrets, the 3 killer training topics. Think of these as hurdles to you becoming a business owner. First, I'll show you exactly what the 10 steps are to buy a business, and you must follow these in order. It's really critical. Second, I'll show you lots of case studies of deals structured using OPM, other people's money, and it's no more difficult than high school math. And finally, I'll show you how you can get others to operate the businesses for you, so you can do other things like spend time with your family or buy other businesses whilst enjoying the cash flow that your new business is generating for you. So to register for this groundbreaking training, just click on the link underneath this video on YouTube or type in this link into your browser. It's bit.ly/buy-my-business. And I'll see you on air sometime in the next week. Until then, bye for now.